You know, it seems a week doesn't go by and some car company is announcing new investment into electric vehicles in North America. Recently, Stellantis announced a new joint partnership with LG Energy Solutions. In the same week, Toyota announced a battery factory that would apparently come online by 2025. A little bit too late, I think, and it's actually not going to be a very big one. And then Ford announces a huge investment, $11 billion in a JV with SK Innovations. And right now, things are seriously heating up. General Motors and Ford appear to be competing on how much they can invest into electric cars over the next 5 years, which is good news. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Electric Viking. Fantastic to have you here. My name is Sam Evans. I'm coming to you from Melbourne, Australia right now. Now, if you've commented in the comment section and received a comment that says, please contact me on WhatsApp, you've won a prize and rah, 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 it's just someone spamming you and we can't get rid of them. We've tried to and it's impossible. So some idiot spamming you and I won't ask you to contact me on WhatsApp. Now, for those of you who haven't done so already, if you want to get a free stock, jump on to Stake, start a new account, and you'll actually get a free stock. Now, if you use my code, which I'll put in the description below, you get a free stock. If you just create an account without the code, you won't get a free stock, but you actually use my code, then you'll get a free stock. And it also helps us out at the same time as well. Not sure who to invest in? Well, I've made lots of videos on who you should be investing in and who you shouldn't be investing in. I'll put some of those videos in the description below so you can check those out if you want to. Now, if you've got money sitting in cash, well, cash is trash. Honestly, it is. There is so much money being made now in the electric vehicle sector, in terms of batteries, electric cars. Now, I know people personally who have literally made millions of dollars over the past few years in investing in this sector. So I highly recommend you at least research it. So like I said, a week doesn't go by anymore without a new multi-billion-dollar announcement by an excited automaker flashing cash and previewing its electric car plans. Some in desperation, some are well thought out. Depends on who's doing it. Last week, General Motors released a slew of interesting comments saying that they're going to overtake Tesla. Didn't say how they're going to do that. Don't appear to be in position to do that, but they're being very optimistic. Now, General Motors released a slew of actual promises, new lines of business, mostly using EVs in car commerce and more. They said they're going to double their revenue by 2030. Didn't say how, but I like the idea of doubling their revenue. Hopefully, they can pull it off. The headline was that it plans to take Tesla's electric car crown in the United States. Now, personally, check out my video for my analysis on that claim from General Motors. I'll put the link in the description below. Now, the week before that, Ford announced it would spend $11 billion on a new assembly plant and associated battery manufacturing site in Tennessee to be called Blue Oval City, like a kind of a electric car campus, and a second battery plant next door in Kentucky as well. Plans and announcements from car makers come and go, but these two are important both for the size of the investments and for their focus on electric vehicles. It's clear that the 2020s will be the decade when the world's auto industry began a serious transition from combustion engines to electric power, even though right now electric vehicles are just 3% of the global market. But that's not really a fair representation of what's happening. For example, in September, the percentage of vehicles that were purely electric vehicles in China that were sold was 17%. Now it's similar to that number in Europe as well. You can see it's really starting to heat up. So to build EVs in volume, car makers need to be closer to development and production of the battery cells that power them, just as they've been intimately involved in engine development for a century. And that's what these announcements signal. They also signal there's, a little bit of realization from these companies that Joe Biden and his party want things made in America, which is great. It's fantastic. I'm not saying I agree with everything Joe Biden does and says. I don't. But in terms of this is extremely important, and I fully support this. Right now, believe it or not, the Mustang Mach-E for America is made in Mexico, and I don't think that's a good thing. I think moving production to the United States for electric vehicles is a good thing. We need jobs in countries. A lot of jobs will be lost by the transition to electric cars, especially if China does as is anticipated and takes about 60 to 70% of the global automotive electric car market. So we definitely need General Motors and Ford to retain a slice of the market by building electric cars actually in the United States in volume. And of course, if the government gives them incentives to do so, just like the Chinese are giving their automakers incentives, and just like European companies are giving their automakers incentives, then that will help manufacturing to stay in the United States. As always, though, Tesla came first. CEO Elon Musk said way back in November 2013 that the company would need to build a gigafactory to produce huge volumes of battery cells. And then it would need several more, and then several more. Now, General Motors and Ford have followed Musk's lead, suggesting that rather than buying their cells from third-party suppliers, LG Energy Solutions for General Motors and SK Innovation for Ford, they want to co-own and operate the plants and processes that make them. And that is a good thing. Ford's late September announcement that it would spend $11.4 billion building a new EV production plant and 2 battery plants represents the largest single commitment to greenfield facilities in the company's entire history. Now, obviously of that $11 billion, only about $7.5 billion is coming from Ford. The rest of it is coming from SK Innovation. Now, these battery factories will power the company, says a new lineup of Ford and Lincoln EVs that likely includes the Ford F-150 Lightning pickup, which I think already has more than 200,000 pre-orders. Ford massively underestimated the demand for that vehicle, and they're not going to be able to actually deliver on those cars for a couple of years. Same thing for Tesla, of course. There is so much demand for electric cars right now. So, Blue Oval City in Stanton, Tennessee will cover almost 6 square miles and employ 6,000 people. It's massive. It's just ridiculously large. I mean, you need some sort of car to get from one building to another. I'm not sure that that's the most logical thing to do, but I do like the fact that they're really going all in here. Now, the plant includes both a plant to assemble the Lightning, for which Ford says it has already taken 150,000 reservations, and one for the associated batteries starting in 2025. A second Blue Oval SK battery plant in Glendale, Kentucky will add an additional 5,000 jobs. Together, the battery plants could annually produce enough cells for almost 1.3 million EVs with 100 kilowatt hour battery packs. Note that Ford delivered 2.4 million vehicles in 2019 in America, the last normal year for vehicle sales before COVID arrived and the ongoing chip shortage began. Now, the significance of Ford's plans is that it brings the company sort of a little bit within reach of General Motors, which is already building a pair of joint venture battery plants with its partner LG Energy Solutions. Now, one of those is in Lordstown, Ohio, the other in Spring Hill, Tennessee. The first should start producing cells in the second half of 2022. So you can see General Motors is actually a fair way ahead of Ford when it comes to their battery plants. Even though Ford's been talking a lot, they're making the Mustang Mach-E, which is nice. The truth is, in terms of actual ability to produce a large number of vehicles, it is true that GM is, I would say, probably 2 years ahead of Ford. So the first plant, Lordstown, Ohio, the other is in Spring Hill, Tennessee, and the first should start producing cells in the second half of 2022, with Tennessee following shortly thereafter. General Motors is expected to announce at least 2 more cell plants as it rolls out an ambitious portfolio of EVs in multiple sizes and shapes, sold by all 4 of its US brands. The 2022 GMC Hummer EV this fall will be the first, followed by the 2023 Cadillac Lyric. Now, disappointingly, both of those cars are just showpieces. They're just like marketing tools. They're not really meant for mass production. Realistically, these Cadillac doesn't sell many vehicles every year. GMC Hummer EV is $120,000 US. There's not a whole lot of people that can afford those cars. But it's good to see something come out at least within the next 6 months from GM. Now, if you weren't already aware, GM have made a decision, which I don't personally agree with, And when I say I don't agree with this, I don't agree with anyone doing this. I believe Volkswagen and GM and a couple of other companies are making the same mistake of having too many models. General Motors is saying they're going to have 30 electric vehicle models by 2025. 30, I think that's just excessive. Tesla has 2, and they're able to sell nearly 1 million cars a year, but it's just based on 2 models. They'll probably sell 1.5 million Tesla Model 3 and Model Ys next year. I mean, I don't think it's necessary to have 30 models. I think that just increases cost and complexity. Customers don't need to choose from 30 models. That's just too many. But to be honest, if you compare this to Volkswagen, it's actually really small. Volkswagen are planning on having 70 different models between their brands of electric cars by, I believe, 2025. 70 different models. That to me, yeah, I don't think that's the smartest decision. But anyway, the future will tell, won't it? Now, last week's broader GM announcements had a few electric vehicle nuggets, including that the electric version of the Chevrolet Silverado full-size pickup will be unveiled on January the 5th at the Consumer Electronics Show. So not far to go, just over 2 months until we can see that car. It will have a standard glass roof and offer 400 miles of range. The glass roof will be obviously a little bit like the one in the Cybertruck, kind of copying Tesla here a little bit, but that's okay. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of excited to see this pickup. I think the fact that GM and Ford want to make electric pickups is fantastic. Now, hopefully they can accelerate this battery production for these pickup trucks, because once people start buying these, I mean, they're not going to want to buy a petrol pickup truck or a diesel pickup truck. Or sorry to you Americans, they're not going to want to buy a gas pickup truck because they're just so inferior. There's so many advantages to an electric pickup. You can use it as a generator. I mean, you don't go through all those batteries and discs like you do on a normal one. You can regenerate the car as you brake when you're going down hills. I mean, just so many advantages. You can see why Ford got, 48,000 pre-orders within 24 freaking hours. People want electric. More broadly though, GM said half of its factories will be capable of EV production by 2030, and it plans to be the US leader in EV market share in 2025. Like I said, check out my video on whether or not I think that is possible in the description below. Asked how it expected to get there, General Motors President Mark Roos hedged, noting that depends on what Tesla, which has led in market share for 7 years, may have in the pipeline. Contributing to the doubling of revenue, General Motors said will be EV sales that bring new customers rather than substituting for its current buyers. So General Motors are saying, well, they're betting on basically doubling sales. General Motors sales figures have actually decreased year on year for 5 years in a row. So hopefully they can get those customers back by giving them better vehicles. Electric cars means better. So why does this matter? General Motors has the most experience in EVs of the Detroit 2. It tends to create vehicles and then cancel them. The ongoing, painful, drawn-out Bolt EV battery recall hasn't helped matters. But its latest Ultium plans are massive. It aspires to sell entirely electric vehicles by the year 2035. Now, if they can speed that up to 2030, I believe they will be a successful company. If they can't, I think they'll need a bailout from the United States government. Same with Ford. Ford in the 2010s, though, on the other hand, had only the uncompetitive, uncompelling Focus Electric, which nobody's ever heard of. That changed with the 2021 Mustang Mach-E. Now its plans for new battery plants, a dedicated EV factory, and the widespread interest in the electric F-150 indicate the company is appearing to not waste too much time in planning its own EV transition. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Mustang Mach-E being built in China is currently being built with BYD's blade batteries, which is really good news for buyers in China, and hopefully for other buyers, such as us here in Australia. Ford will actually export those vehicles to other countries because BYD's lithium iron phosphate blade battery packs are really incredibly impressive technology. I'll put a link in the description below with a video to why you'd want a car with that battery pack. So all of this leaves one question. When will Stellantis announce its own EVs suitable for North American buyers and the battery plants to feed them? Well, to be honest, I think out of these three, Stellantis will definitely go bankrupt. And then out of Ford and GM, well, I believe realistically, General Motors does have that 2-year head start. So Ford are the company more likely to need a bailout from the United States government. Will they get it? I don't know. Remember, Ford and GM both have a lot of debt. It's not all that different, the amount of debt they both have, but Ford's debt is rated below General Motors' debt, so Ford pays a higher interest rate on that debt than General Motors does on their debt. Both companies, though, do have a lot of debt. Now, obviously, detractors of the company say that's a problem. Now, people who like the companies say that's not an issue as long as they can repay the debt. Well, honestly, realistically, the more that General Motors and Ford can pump up their stock by announcing positive EV developments and actually not just sort of mentioning vague comments, but actually laying out the groundwork and saying, this is exactly what we're going to do, this is when we'll do it. Even if they don't hit those exact targets, at least that gives investors some encouragement to enter into the stock, gives GM some cash, Ford some cash, just like Tesla has. Obviously, the stock being pumped up. Tesla has given Tesla enormous amounts of cash and enabled them to build factories, more factories to compete and or beat their competitors. That's what Ford and GM need. They need better leadership. And honestly, right now, I think their leadership could be significantly improved. Tell me what you think in the comment section below. Out of these three, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, who do you see succeeding? Will they succeed at all? If not, why? If they will, let me know. I'm really interested to know what you think. If you know any information that I don't, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for supporting, subscribing, and for sticking around and supporting the electric car movement. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.